There was once a capital city in America that vanished, not through war, not through fire, but because a river simply decided to take it back. Before Chicago was anything more than a swamp on a map, one city ruled the American frontier. It had cathedrals, courthouses, and a population that once rivaled any town west of the Appalachians. It served as the very first capital of the state of Illinois. Today, almost no American has ever heard its name. This is the story of Kaskaskia, the city the Mississippi River erased from existence. Kaskaskia's story begins in 1703, when French Jesuit missionaries and members of the Kaskaskia tribe settled near the meeting point of the Kaskaskia and Mississippi rivers, in a region then known as Upper Louisiana. French fur traders had already been visiting the area for about 30 years, exchanging goods and, in some cases, marrying local women, including the chief's daughter, who became a devout Catholic. Out of this fusion of cultures grew a settlement that would become one of the oldest European communities in the entire American Midwest. By 1725, the French had officially incorporated it as a town, and King Louis XV granted it special rights. Kaskaskia didn't just survive, it thrived, and it changed hands more than almost any town in American history. Fort Kaskaskia was destroyed by its own villagers in 1766 when the British took control of the region, and in 1778, American frontiersman George Rogers Clark captured the town for the United States during the Revolutionary War. At its height in the 1780s, this was no frontier outpost. Its population had peaked at around 7,000 people, making it a genuine regional center of trade and culture. Kaskaskia's political importance only grew from there. In 1809, it became the capital of the newly created Illinois Territory. And when Illinois achieved statehood in 1818, Kaskaskia briefly served as the very first capital of the state itself. Steamboats lined its riverfront docks. Merchants and settlers filled its streets. For a brief, glittering window in American history, this obscure river town was the beating political heart of the Midwest, hosting the first governor, the first legislature, the first everything. But Kaskaskia's fortune was never stable. In 1811, a great comet blazed across the sky, and locals believed it foretold the disasters that followed that same year. A flood that ravaged crops, a tornado that leveled part of the town, and then the terrifying New Madrid earthquakes that shook the region through early 1812. It was as if the land itself was warning its people. Few listened. The capital was stripped away soon after anyway. The seat of government moved to Vandalia in 1820, just 2 years after statehood. While politicians debated capitals, something far more dangerous was happening beneath the surface. In the mid-1860s, the Mississippi River began quietly shifting its bed, a silent change that almost no one recognized as a threat. The cause wasn't just nature. 19th century settlers had stripped away the thick deciduous forests and tangled undergrowth that once lined the riverbanks, vegetation that had spent centuries anchoring the soil and slowing floodwaters. Once that natural barrier was gone, the river was free to move. The Great Flood of 1844 struck first, forcing residents to abandon their original town site as the land began disappearing beneath the Mississippi. Families dismantled what they could: pews, bells, foundations, and rebuilt on what was left of higher ground. But the land they'd fled to was itself becoming an island, slowly surrounded by water on every side. For decades, the Mississippi kept eating away at the narrow strip of land separating it from the Kaskaskia River. By the 1870s, the river had steadily worn through the neck of land, and the first major breakthrough finally happened in the spring of 1881. Once the Mississippi broke through the old channel, the town simply did not recover. Eventually, the Mississippi's growing channel overtook the lower course of the Kaskaskia River entirely and began actively washing the old town away, piece by piece. This wasn't a war or an economic collapse. It was simply water. Homes, churches, cemeteries, and entire streets went under. And some survivors later described watching buildings drift downstream as the floodwaters peaked. Even the dead weren't spared. Much of the old cemetery, the resting place of some of Illinois' earliest settlers, was gradually claimed by the shifting riverbank in the years that followed, its gravestones lost beneath the sediment. When the water finally settled, Kaskaskia was no longer connected to Illinois at all. The Mississippi had carved an entirely new channel east of the town, turning the original site into an island cut off from the mainland. The state boundary line never moved to match, meaning Kaskaskia is legally still part of Illinois, but geographically stranded on the Missouri side of the river, reachable only by crossing from Missouri. It remains to this day the only piece of Illinois that lies west of the Mississippi. By the end of the 19th century, little of the original town remained, and the last substantial home finally collapsed into the river in 1907. A small number of families salvaged what they could and rebuilt about 3 miles away. In 1893, they even reconstructed the old Church of the Immaculate Conception, preserving inside it the bell King Louis XV had gifted the town more than 150 years earlier, later nicknamed the Liberty Bell of the West. Kaskaskia's story didn't end in 1881. Further floods struck again in 1973 and 1993, and in 1990, a flood left the remaining 32 residents with their homes submerged under 9 feet of water. Today, fewer than 24 people live in what remains of Kaskaskia, making it one of the least populated incorporated communities in the entire United States. Archaeologists have barely begun to study what lies buried beneath the sediment. Researchers at Southern Illinois University believe much of the lost original community may still be found underground, a discovery that could rewrite a forgotten chapter of American history. Kaskaskia is proof that history doesn't always end in fire or bloodshed. Sometimes an empire, a capital, an entire way of life simply gets carried away, one current at a time. The next time you cross a bridge over a quiet American river, remember, it's still writing the map, whether we're paying attention or not. If forgotten places like this fascinate you, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which vanished American town you want us to uncover next.